Hey everybody, Will here with Broudy Tennis, and I'm here with Jack Broudy, um, the man behind the Broudy Tennis system. Hey Jack, how are you today?
Nice to see you. How are you, Will?
Good, good.
I'm good.
So to get started, let's just if you can just tell people a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, coaches and players you've worked with, things like that.
Well, I guess you could go back as far as the juniors. I played the juniors like most youth pros did. And, got little rankings and represented New England in the Nationals, Kalamazoo, and all that. And, had its moments, ups and downs in the juniors. I think everyone knows how that is. You're on top of the world and then you quit the next week. But I think I was a pretty typical junior. I didn't get to play as much as most of the kids because I was in Connecticut. So, indoor time was scarce and expensive. So most of my tennis was in the summers, June, July, and August, really,
Right.
until I was about 15. And then my dad took it a little more seriously for me, and we started going a couple times a week indoors. But I always seemed to have a better ranking than I always thought I deserved. You know what I mean? I just like a win here and a win there. I never felt like a great player in the juniors. And then college came, and I ended up going to UC San Diego after 2 years or a year. I went to 1 year at Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina, but was having a tough time seeing playtime. I was playing like seven on the team, and just I wasn't getting on the court enough. During matches, I was practicing every day with the team, which was great because we had a great team. I think we were seven in the country, very good team. But starting was really difficult. So I transferred to UC San Diego, redshirted a semester, and then started playing for UCSD. And that was a lot of fun. I played top four singles, number one doubles with Billy Hine, who was a real good partner, good guy. And so college was pretty good. Same thing. I always felt like my rankings and my successes were better than me. So always, I guess a lot of tennis players feel that way, but I always had self-doubt all through the juniors, and then all through college. Billy and I got to be All-Americans in doubles. We got to the quarterfinals, which was great. We lost to the team 5-4 in the third set tiebreaker, and they went on to win the tournament. So that was a heartbreaker for us. But yeah, I would say the same thing in college. I still hadn't fulfilled my desire of really feeling like I owned the game. And so after college, I went on to be a pro at a club in Palm Springs, Palm Desert to be exact, and then Palm Springs, a job there. And I think I was in the desert for 2-3 years, and then came out to the far west coast, the LA area, and I was working at a couple clubs in the Malibu area, which was really nice. And I was still training and running and pretty fanatical about staying in shape and wanting to be a player. I was only 23 or so, 22, and I really still wanted to be a player. And I wanted to get to that point where I felt like I really owned the game. I use that expression, but, I always think of a couple people in the juniors. I think of Freddie Tagan. I think of John Hayes. I think of the best players in New England. And Tim Mayotte, Chris Mayotte, and the two brothers. And I always was sort of envious of them, even though, like I said, I could muscle my way to a quarterfinals or even a finals here and there and win a tournament here and there. It was always felt like it was muscling my way. I had to do it with all my senses. I had to get pumped up, a good night's sleep. Everything had to be just right. I had to warm up for an awfully long time. And I had to be hot to play well. I couldn't do what some of the other kids did, that were better than me in the juniors. They just sort of got on the court and everything was the same and everything felt the same to them. At least that's how it looked to me.
Yeah.
I really admired watching some of those guys, Peter Ogilvy and some of those guys in the juniors. I really admired how they could just sort of hit the ball back and forth, almost like having a catch with someone 10 feet away. Like they made it look that easy where there's almost no chance of them missing. Where me, like I said, I could get to that point, but I always felt like if I took too much time off, I'd be in big trouble or I'd lose my feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kept playing in after college, and I ended up playing Pete Sampras in a doubles match. He was
Oh
15.
wow.
He still had his two-handed backhand,
Yeah.
and we lost to him in 3 sets, and his partner Billy and I think we were about 23, just out of college. And I couldn't figure out how this kid never missed. I was like, God, he's incredible. And then, of course, a year and a half later, I'm watching him on TV in the finals against Agassi of the U.S. Open. So I go, okay, that wasn't such a bad loss. Um, but yeah, like I said, that's sort of the reason I stuck in tennis. I mean, I could have done other things, and my parents, I know, wanted me to do other things, be a lawyer, or a doctor, or something. And because I sort of had the gift of gab, I might have made a good lawyer. Who knows? But I was really into tennis, and I wanted to not only teach other people and help them, but I still wanted to help myself. I still wasn't satisfied that I'd found the key to unlock the secrets of tennis, or however you want to put that. So I kept at it, always trying different things. I went through Bullet Terry, I went through Dennis Vandermeer, and I went through these courses, and I tried everything. I went to all the USPTA conventions, but nobody was really saying much different. So I just kept going on and on, and I ended up with some good kids I coached. So I guess we're into coaching now, because my playing, nothing to speak of. No one's ever heard of me as a player. And I think I was 6 or 7 in New England, which, that's not a big deal, really. That equates to maybe 250 in the country. But I still had, something was bugging me about tennis. So I just kept on and on and on, whether it was serving on my knees or whipping a towel or taking TM. When I was 17 or 18, I think I took Transcendental Meditation to try and get that combination of relaxed and focused at the same time. Every player is looking for that. Yeah. And I was too. And it's really not until I published my first book. I had a couple of good players in my 30s. I was coaching some Steve Foreman, working with Stevie Johnson a bit, and Sam Querrey, and all these guys. And at that time, I had just written a book called The Real Spin on Tennis. And my now friend Paul Mayberry read it, and he approached me and said, "Hey, I shoot video. I'd like to shoot some video with you on the court." So we got together and we did some video shooting. But Paul turned me on to this guy named Rudolf Steiner, and that's where it all began. About 20 years ago, 22 years ago, just before I turned 40, and he turned me on to this guy Rudolf Steiner, and he said, I think there's a lot of similarities in tennis with this guy, with this projective geometry. That Rudolf Steiner was a real Renaissance man. He was a musician. He was a bodybuilder, a weightlifter. He invented his own instruments, musical instruments, and he was also a scientist, big-time scientist. In fact, the only reason you or the audience might know who Steiner is, if you've ever heard of the Waldorf schools. Rudolf Steiner, he's the founder of the Waldorf schools.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he's a very interesting guy. And I just got fascinated with him. And they were talking about the 45-degree angle and the figure eight. And I saw tennis and all this. And Paul, my friend, saw tennis and all this. And we started really getting deep, hunkering deep down into this. In fact, our first group of kids were Steve Foreman, Bijan Moalami, Sam Querrey, Steve Johnson. Coco Vandeweghe was coming to us for a while. Karen Foreman, Eric Riley, who he won the Orange Bowl doubles, boys 18s. I had like 10 or 12 really good kids out of the 60 kids I was working with. And I started using this idea of the figure eight and the 45-degree angle with this group of kids. And coincidentally, they all turned into something very special, right? I mean, Foreman was #1 in the country in the juniors. Sam Querrey and Steve Johnson, I don't have to tell you about. Coco did well. Karen Foreman played full ride for Wake Forest. Steve Foreman played full ride for his college, Wake Forest as well. And so these were my 8-board babies. So that's when we invented the 8-board to show people how to move in this fluid figure eight we sort of patented the double swivel. So we put two swivels on the ground, and just by swiveling your feet, you learned how to keep your head in one place, but your body was making this really dynamic move. And so I guess with coaching, I use these kids sort of as my guinea pigs, and they sure did very well. And it's been pretty exciting ever since. Really, I'm still, way into tennis more than ever. I play more left-handed now than I've ever played because we wanted to prove out our methods. So I decided 10 years ago I better learn to play lefty so I can show people it doesn't matter if you're an athlete or not, or if you've been playing tennis your whole life. And I'd never played with my left hand. So I started playing left-handed and serving left-handed, and it's a really neat feeling to be able to play left-handed because you feel like a different person, almost like a psycho, like a schizophrenic. Yeah. Because when you put the racket in your left hand, you think differently, you feel differently as a person. Yeah. It's really interesting because you're using the right side of your brain to play left-handed, which is the artistic side. And obviously, being a righty and a one-handed backhander, I always use the left side of my brain because that's how it works. That cross wiring. So I learned so much myself. So I'm always coaching and I'm always learning because this system is so neat and it's so logical. And when you look at it, it's at first it looks counterintuitive. Oh, you don't turn and get your racket back. It looks counterintuitive, but when you realize it actually is intuitive. Space and counter space, balance and counterbalance,